Hello and welcome to another episode of Small Caps. I'm Peter Capsanis. Well, for anyone living on the southeast coast of Australia, the energy crisis has materialised and raised its ugly head. Last week, the energy operator warned that gas supplies were at crisis point and that supplies between now and at the end of the decade were abysmally low. David Breeze is my guest today to talk about the continued gas crisis and shortage. He's a chairman and MD of BPH Energy, that's ASX code BPH. The company has a diversified portfolio across the energy, health and medtech space. David, it's been a while, but good to be able to chat to you again today.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to today's conversation, to be honest. You didn't hold back last time we spoke. It looks like your concerns were on the money. Some background for all our viewers who might not be aware, we've got a gas shortage on the east coast of the country. You and your investee company, Advert Energy, has acquired the permit to PEP11, an oil and gas prospect off the New South Wales coast. The New South Wales Parliament passed a bill recently to stop drilling off its coast, but you'd be arguing that prospect is in fact in Commonwealth waters. A decision like that, the state parliament one I'm referring to, akin to lunacy given the energy crisis we have on our hands at the moment, David?
So I wouldn't use the word lunacy, but nonetheless for households and businesses in the east coast of Australia, it's a decision which goes against all of their energy needs and job security. Because as the Minister for Resources has said when she launched the gas strategy, that in fact shortages of gas would lead to poverty and associated impacts on the community.
Well,
what we're seeing...
Sorry, go ahead.
What we're seeing here in the current circumstances is that the east coast of Australia is within 2 weeks of an energy crisis as the Iona gas storage facility in Victoria rapidly depletes to meet the requirements of the cold snaps that are coming through the east coast of Australia at the moment and taking temperatures in Melbourne to -3 degrees effective this morning. And that's exactly the sort of issue. So in fact, there are 5 million households across Australia that rely upon gas as a key part of their heating and other hot water and cooking needs. So you can't take gas out of that system. And if you applied that logic of the New South Wales government to the Victorian and other states, you would in fact shut down households, manufacturing, and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. We saw what happened a few years ago. Longford facility went out and it cost billions of dollars when that facility dropped out. And that's exactly the sort of issue that we're facing at the moment in Australia.
Yeah, look, you're in Perth, I'm in Perth, in Western Australia. The state government years ago, about 20 odd years ago, and I've raised this a few times, introduced the gas reservation policy where up to 15% of gas is preserved for domestic use. Shouldn't the state and federal governments be moving or looking at this as an option moving forward?
Well, it's not necessary to do that. In fact, we've said in relation to the offshore gas permit PEP11, which is 26 kilometres offshore Newcastle for our gas target, that we will allocate 100% of any gas that's produced out of that permit area into the east coast and in particular into New South Wales. When you look at Victoria, all of the gas that is produced there currently goes into the East Coast gas market. Queensland has a significant portion of its gas under contract to overseas companies and countries, including Japan, Korea, Singapore, and China. And so, in fact, you can't just initiate a change in legislation that enables that gas to move to the Australian marketplace. And even if you were to do that at the moment, pipeline that runs from the northern gas fields down the east coast and into New South Wales and Victoria is running at 106% of capacity. In other words, the capacity is not there in the infrastructure in the east coast to take the gas from up the north into down into those southern states. New South Wales relies on other states' production for 100% of its gas needs. And what Australia is facing at the moment is within 8 years or so that, in fact, there is insufficient gas to meet either the export contracts, which has significant international ramifications for Australia if they were to break those contracts, or in fact to cut out gas supply into all of those households and manufacturing facilities that I talked about a moment ago.
So, David, let me ask you, and a lot of people will be wondering, how did we, and you know, some parts of the country are oblivious because their energy stocks aren't as low as other states. But I guess as a nation and as someone who's involved in the industry, how did we get here? Is it just a run of bad policy consecutively?
So a series of governments of both persuasions initiated policies to limit the amount of new gas coming into the marketplace. Now, they did this in anticipation of renewables taking up the major proportion of energy into the East Coast marketplace. That is not occurring, and in fact, in a simplistic term, if you look at solar and wind in the East Coast at the moment, they've been unable to meet the requirements because we've got winter calm weather, no wind, and little sunshine during the winter periods. And so, in fact, the output out of renewable energy under those circumstances has significantly reduced. And that means that you have a demand on electricity generation from coal and also backed up by gas-fired power. All of those elements mean that when you look at what's occurring in the renewables market, that UBS has just forecast in one of their recently released research papers that power prices, that is electricity prices, will rise by 50% by the end of this decade.
Well, it's a nice segue to my next question, because I was just about to ask you, it's surprising that the argument for renewables hasn't surfaced, and why isn't that happening? Or is that because, in your opinion, there isn't enough infrastructure, there isn't enough capacity for renewables to fill the void, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, and that's now been recognised by AEMO. In fact, AEMO, in their most recent research paper, has said that another 13, or that there will be a need for 13 or 16 gigawatts of gas-fired capacity as the backup to renewables. So it's not that we should not go to renewables. We should optimise the use of renewables, and that's now recognised by both the Labor Party and by the Liberal Party. But you need a backup so that you're able to substitute when the renewables aren't working, and that's where gas becomes a critical part of that, those energy inputs.
As I guess as as an energy consumer, have we too reliant on this centralised system? Is it time to consider and enable more decentralisation? Let those who want to run off solar, wind, gas, and leave it, let them run off their own scheme, so to speak.
We certainly need to remove the constraints that different government policies are putting on additional supplies of gas, and that in fact has been recognised in the gas strategy paper that the Minister for Resources, Madeleine King, has just put out. And that gas strategy paper has recognised that there is a need for new sources of gas, including from recognised basins, which is exactly what the Sydney Basin is. The Sydney Basin, in fact, covers both onshore and offshore and is recognised as a gas basin. It's already, as it were, transited into the gas phase and not an oil phase. So, in fact, it's ideally placed to be able to supply gas into both New South Wales and into the eastern states. In addition to the issues that are occurring at the moment, of course, you have the gas pipeline connector between the Northern Territory and Queensland has also shut down because of difficulties in the Blacktip field. And that means that the LNG export facilities are being called upon to supply gas to keep the lights and power on in the Northern Territory. In short, we need more sources of gas into the East Coast.
I'll come back to my original question, Dave, because I feel your opinion carries weight. Are we too reliant on a centralised system? For example, here in Western Australia, we've got the Swiss setup, the Southwest Interconnected System, or the grid. Is going off grid, I'll break it even further down. Do you think going off grid and let those who want to run off gas, solar, wind, and choose to live how they want, is that something that's got merit?
So the capacity of a wide range of the community to generate their own electricity is limited by both infrastructure and rental status, i.e. renters versus owners. But more particularly, there are constraints in the total package, which is why AEMO has a key component in the total energy mix in the way in which it looks at and becomes an energy monitor in the East Coast. So you've got the Australian Energy Regulator, and it is necessary to have input from both areas. Yes, Australia has the highest input from roof solar, or the highest penetration of rooftop solar in the world. But as we've just seen in the East Coast in the current market, that's inadequate to meet requirements for what's required.
All right, look, let's change tack a little bit. Talk to me more about PEP 11, your prospect off the New South Wales coast. I think you said off Newcastle. It's an option to fill the shortage, as you said. You're happy to dedicate that capacity solely to domestic gas use, but at the moment you can't act on it. Is that right?
That's correct. We're currently waiting for our application for the extension of that permit to allow us to drill the Seablue One World, which we're looking to drill in order to be able to prove up a gas resource to supply into the New South Wales gas network in the near term. Proximity is a key element of speed to market in both the national and the international sense. And we're only 26 kilometres off the Newcastle to Sydney gas pipeline linkage.
And is that tied up in legal affairs at the moment, David? How are you trying to expedite this process?
No, so we have an application before NOPTA, the National Offshore Petroleum Authority, and their recommendation has been given to the Minister for Resources, and we're currently waiting for that decision to be made.
Okay, all right. All right, well, look, fingers crossed there's a positive outcome. Before we wrap things up, David, I guess you've been knocking on government doors and policymakers' doors to help shine a light here. What's the solution? And I feel you've probably touched on it, but what's the solution and where are we fumbling as we, I guess it is now commitment towards net zero, but what's the solution to try and achieve that balance in terms of accommodating all those needs, the demands, and as well as, I guess, realising this ideology, if you will, of net zero?
So gas is a significant component of meeting that net zero. Gas, in fact, is recognised as having around a 50% less contribution into CO2 emissions than coal. And in fact, gas together with carbon capture and storage can have a very significant impact into reaching that net zero. Now, in addition, of course, we already have an investment into a hydrogen technology, which you touched on when you introduced the topic this morning. And the hydrogen technology that we've invested in and are now moving into commercial production has the capacity to take methane gas and produce both hydrogen, which is what the world is looking for, and also high quality carbon nanotubes, if you will, or a type of carbon black, which is an extremely high value industrial product. The carbon nanotubes have a significant added value and are used across a wide range of industrial processes. So we're part of that whole solution.
Well, we look forward to finding and unearthing more about that in the near future, and I anticipate, as I say, a favourable outcome in terms of PEP 11. Is there a timeline that you're expecting to hear back on in relation to that?
I think the market, there is no legislated timeline for the minister to make a decision. There is, however, a market imperative that more gas sources are brought to the market, and that was shown in the introductory elements of Minister King when she said that a lack of gas has that significant impact on both manufacturing and households, and it's being recognised in the current AEMO documentation and integrated system plan that they've just put out.
David, a thought-provoking piece once again. Thank you for your insight, and as I said, we do look forward to seeing and finding out what the decision is in relation to your prospect, your PEP 11 prospect there off the New South Wales coast sooner than later. We'll watch closely as well as to what happens there on the eastern states as they chill during this frosty winter. I guess we're a bit blessed here on the west side of things here in Western Australia. So it is, I guess, a bit of a great divide when it comes to the energy debate. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us today on Small Caps, and we hope to chat to you soon.
Thanks indeed, Peter, and thanks for the chance to speak today.
Our pleasure. We'll catch you next time.